The Green Lanterns. The Green Lantern Corps is an intergalactic police force founded thousands of years ago by the Guardians of the Universe and is devoted to protecting sentient life in all its forms. The Guardians began as inhabitants of Maltus, an overpopulated world in the young universe, where they evolved into immortal beings of tremendous power. Their turn towards cosmic stewardship came after one of their own. A renegade scientist named Krona carried out a forbidden experiment whose consequences damaged the universe at large. In its aftermath, the survivors relocated to the planet Oa, took the name the Guardians of the Universe, and pledged themselves as enemies of evil. Long before the Corps existed, roughly 3.5 billion years ago, the Guardians had built a legion of robotic sentinels called the Manhunters to enforce their will and defend against alien threats. The machines eventually grew to resent their servitude, and the Guardians came to see them as flawed for their inability to recognize or feel fear. The Manhunters rebelled, and the resulting war stretched across millennia before culminating in an assault on Oa itself. The Guardians prevailed, stripping their android servants of their power and scattering them across the universe. Chastened by the failure of the Manhunters, the Guardians decided that their next Guardians would be living beings, ones possessing free will and strong moral character. To arm this new legion of celestial knights, they created the Power Rings, devices of inconceivably advanced technology that let their wearers project green beams of energy and conjure objects of any size or shape, limited only by the imagination and willpower of the bearer. The ring ranks among the most powerful weapons in the DC universe. Best known for those solid energy constructs, it also generates a protective force field that allows the wearer to fly and to survive in the vacuum of space. That power does come with limits. A ring holds only a finite charge and has to be recharged periodically. Certain devices and abilities can also drain a ring against its wearer's will or siphon off its energy for later use. The Green Lantern Corps numbers 7,200 Green Lanterns, each selected by the rings themselves. Space is divided into sectors, and those needing more than one protector are assigned a pair, while heavily populated sectors can support several lanterns at once. Sector 2814, the sector containing Earth, has Hal Jordan and John Stewart as its primary lanterns. Kyle Rayner and Guy Gardner also call Earth home, but are stationed on Oa, serving as teachers and taking on the cases that prove too difficult for the average Green Lantern. Each member of the Corps enjoys considerable autonomy in how they handle their jurisdiction, though the Guardians reserve the right to review a lantern they believe has abused that authority. Lanterns are also responsible for arranging their own replacements as they near retirement or death. Should one die before fulfilling that obligation, the ring seeks out a successor on its own and sees them trained. On rare occasions, the Guardians go into the field personally to recruit a replacement. Upon recruitment, every Green Lantern receives a power ring, a lantern-shaped power battery for recharging it, and a uniform. Members can customize their look as they please so long as the color scheme and the symbol are the same as the original uniform. When a lantern's physical nature rules out a conventional uniform, an equivalent is expected instead. Lanterns can also maintain a secret identity as a security measure, and the Corps is understood to honor that choice by taking care not to expose them. Once a ring finds a recruit, they are brought to Oa for training. Not everyone makes it through. A great many wash out, at which point the ring has to go looking for another candidate. Continued training in the use of the ring is optional, with facilities and instructors available on Oa to any who ask, and a senior lantern can be assigned to coach a recruit in the field within their own sector. Every ring requires periodic recharging, and many lanterns mark the occasion by reciting an oath. The oath does nothing to power the ring, it is spoken to reaffirm the wearer's commitment to the Corps. The oath is as follows: "In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light." Ion, the entity of will, is the sentient force that powers the Green Lantern Corps. It normally dwells within the central power battery on Oa, though it can survive outside it by entering a symbiotic relationship with a host. The Yellow Lanterns. The Sinestro Corps, better known as the Yellow Lantern Corps, took its name from its founder, Sinestro. Its power traces back to Parallax, a parasitic creature from space that embodied fear itself and had been sealed away inside the central power battery on the planet Oa. Over the ages, its presence there came to be called the Yellow Impurity, and it was the reason for the Green Lantern Corps having a primary weakness to the color yellow. Thal Sinestro had once been a Green Lantern himself, before he turned against the Corps. The Guardians of the Universe banished him to the antimatter universe, but when he returned, he carried a power ring that ran on yellow energy. A series of clashes with Earth's Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, ended with Sinestro imprisoned inside the central power battery, but while there, he still had his ring, which drew its strength from fear rather than willpower, and from within that prison, he used it to rouse Parallax from its long slumber. Following Hal Jordan's fall and eventual redemption, Sinestro built his own corps and began recruiting in earnest, offering a yellow ring and a place in the organization to anyone capable of instilling great fear. Recruits were then taken straight to the planet Quard, where they underwent psychological and physical reconditioning before taking up their duties. Parallax, as fear-given form, is tied to the yellow light of the emotional spectrum. The symbol the Corps wears comes from drawings made by creatures who stared into Parallax's open mouth and survived to record what they saw. Members recite the following oath as they recharge their rings, similar to the Green Lanterns. In blackest day, in brightest night, beware your fears made into light. Let those who try to stop what's right burn like his power, Sinestro's might. The Corps' rings are manufactured on Quard and work much like a Green Lantern's, differing chiefly in that fear powers them. The only known vulnerability of a Yellow Lantern ring is that a Blue Lantern's ring can drain a Yellow Lantern ring's power. The Red Lanterns. The Red Lantern Corps' founder, Atrocitus, was one of only 5 beings to survive the massacre of Sector 666. After the Guardians of the Universe witnessed the moment of the universe's creation, they committed themselves entirely to imposing order on all existence. To carry out that mission, they built the Manhunters. However, they came to the conclusion that true order could only be achieved by eliminating organic life. They first began the fulfillment of this conclusion in Sector 666. The Manhunters swept through its worlds and killed everything they encountered. By the time the Owens discovered what their creations were doing and shut them down, an entire region of space had been reduced to 5 survivors. Atrocitus held the Guardians of the Universe responsible for what had happened to his sector, and over the years, that blame hardened into a deep and constant rage. That rage took physical form for the first time when he finally surrendered to it completely, beating one of his fellow survivors to death with a Red Lantern power battery. He then killed the remaining survivors, and then, drawing on the power of the red spectrum, pulled the rage out of his own body and let it pour forth as blood in order to use blood magic to forge a Red Lantern central power battery. From it came the individual batteries and rings that would arm the Red Lantern Corps. Standing in the shadow of that great lantern and soaked in the blood of those he had killed, Atrocitus swore vengeance on the Guardians of the Universe and on Sinestro, the greatest of the Green Lanterns. A Red Lantern ring draws its power from rage, and that rage reduces whoever wears it to a feral, mindless creature, and the only known cure for this insanity is the Blood Lake of Yzmalt. Beyond that, the ring offers the same core abilities as those of the other lanterns, letting their bearers fly and survive unprotected in deep space. Red Lantern's blood also becomes a corrosive, plasma-like substance that they can use to eat through the energy constructs and protective auras other lanterns rely on for defense. This comes from the ring itself, which replaces the wearer's circulatory system entirely. Thus, as a general rule, removing a Red Lantern ring will kill the wearer. The red entity of rage is known as the Butcher, and it takes the shape of an earth bull, the bone structure of its forehead forming the Red Lantern symbol. It was born from the first act of murder committed in the universe. Atrocitus composed an oath for the Red Lanterns to speak when recharging their rings, though it remains unclear how often it is actually used, as the other members of his corps are rarely shown to be capable of speech at all. The oath itself is as follows: "With blood and rage of crimson red, ripped from a corpse so freshly dead, together with our hellish hate, will burn you all, that is your fate." The Blue Lanterns. Ganthet and Sed were two of the Guardians of the Universe who were eventually cast out by their own kind because they refused to suppress their individuality. In exile, the pair founded the Blue Lantern Corps. The power rings they created drew their strength from hope, forged out of the founders' own hope for what the future could be. Joining the Blue Lantern Corps is not the instantaneous process it is for some corps. Each candidate is chosen by whichever Blue Lantern has been recruited most recently, who then brings them to the Corps' headquarters on the planet Odom. There, Ganthet and Sed speak with the newcomer about what carrying the power of hope actually means, a duty to surrender oneself to the universe and the destiny that comes with it. Only after the candidate accepts those conditions do the Guardians of Hope grant them a ring. Because the process is so drawn out, the Corps never numbers more than a handful of members. Hope is the strongest of the 7 emotions, yet a blue ring can only reach its full potential when its bearer stands near an active Green Lantern ring. On its own, the ring offers just 2 basic abilities, flight and a protective aura. The reason for this is simple: hope accomplishes nothing without the willpower to act on it. That aura alone is enough to keep a Blue Lantern alive in the vacuum of space and in other hostile environments. Even without a Green Lantern nearby, its wielders can shape it to a limited extent, using it to boost their own strength or stretching it outward into a broader shield, though these uses are almost entirely defensive. In the presence of a green ring, however, a blue ring gains everything a green ring can do and more. Blue Lanterns can mend injuries and regrow lost limbs. The rings can also disrupt those belonging to the opposite end of the emotional spectrum, weakening the performance of red, orange, and yellow rings. The entity Adara is the embodiment of hope itself, and it takes the form of a bird. Also of note is that the Blue Lanterns recharge their rings by speaking the following oath: "In fearful day, in raging night, with strong hearts full, our souls ignite. When all seems lost in the war of light, look to the stars, for hope burns bright." The Orange Lanterns. The Orange Lantern Corps draws its power from the orange light of avarice, the part of the emotional spectrum tied to greed, and it has only one true member: Larfleeze. Other Lantern Corps grow by recruiting new members and sharing their power, but Larfleeze is far too greedy to let anyone else near the Orange Lantern power battery. Instead, his core is made up of constructs generated by his ring, which are copies of the people he has killed. Much of Larfleeze's early history has been lost due to the Guardians of the Universe covering it up. By his own telling, he was born to a family of farmers, considered ugly as a child, and mistreated by his parents along with his 16 siblings. His homeworld was later conquered by an alien race who forced him to father children with a female prisoner named Brokia. Those children were shipped off to a distant world and sold into slavery. Larfleeze eventually escaped and led a revolution against his captors. He also claimed to be one of 5 thieves who raided the planet Maltus, losing one of their own in the process, and made off with several treasures, most importantly a box and a map. The box was said to be worth more than an entire star system, since it held parallax. The map, meanwhile, had been drawn by Krona, a disgraced Malthusian, and was rumored to lead to something extraordinarily valuable. The surviving thieves traveled to Okara and entered the Forbidden Forest of Weeds, where the forest itself killed another of their members. The rest tumbled into a hidden temple and found the Orange Lantern power battery waiting inside. Mesmerized, the 3 remaining thieves turned on one another, each determined to claim it. The Guardians of the Universe arrived with a force of manhunters to stop them, but the orange light drained their power, killing several Guardians and manhunters, and a 3rd thief in the process. Only Larfleeze and a thief named Blooch were left standing. The Guardians in response offered a bargain: hand over the box holding parallax, and the battery could stay in the hands of the thieves, provided it never left the temple, and provided only one of them owned it. The pair agreed and fought each other to the death. Larfleeze won, becoming the sole wielder of the orange power battery and taking the name Agent Orange. Larfleeze shares several abilities with other lantern wielders: flight, protective aura projection, and the creation of solid constructs. Beyond that, and as explained earlier, he can steal the identities of those he kills, turning them into orange apparitions. The orange light can also absorb green light constructs and mystical energies, though it has no such effect on blue or violet constructs. The entity that embodies the orange power of avarice is called Ophidian, which takes the form of a snake. It came into being as the first creature ever to eat more than it needed. As for the Orange Lantern Oath, it is as follows. What's mine is mine, and mine and mine, and mine and mine and mine, not yours. The Violet Lanterns. The Violet Lantern Corps, better known as the Star Sapphire Corps, was a primarily female organization that drew its power from the violet light of love. The Corps came out of Sector 1416 and was founded and led by the Zamarons, a group of Owens who had left their homeworld and settled on the planet Zamaron. There they discovered a parasitic crystal, which they shaped into several gems called Star Sapphires. The Zamarons used these gems to empower women who had loved and been rejected, offering them a chance at revenge. Eventually, the Zamarons recognized that the power they had unleashed was beyond their ability to control, so they took a Star Sapphire gem and forged from it a violet power battery and a power ring. The rings that followed ran on love, one of only two emotions, the other being rage, capable of exerting the most extreme influence over the person wielding it. Soon after the Corps' founding, its members built a central power battery and began sending rings out across the universe to seek candidates, not only those who had been loved and spurned, but also those who had lost someone they loved, with a mission to spread love and stand against hate and fear. Once someone chose to accept a ring and join, they were encouraged to let their heart lead them. The Corps' oath is as follows: "For hearts long lost and full of fright, for those alone in blackest night, accept our ring and join our fight. Love conquers all with violet light." The emotional entity tied to the Star Sapphire Corps is the Predator, a monstrous violet creature with a mix of insectoid, reptilian, and alien features, shining with brilliant violet light. It represents love in its purest and most extreme form. Love with nothing to hold it back. Drawing on their rings and crystals, members can shape violet energy into any object or weapon they imagine. Beyond that, they uniquely can seal an enemy inside violet crystal, holding them in suspended animation while flooding their mind with thoughts of love. They can also heal wounds, both physical and emotional, no matter how severe, and can sense love itself across enormous distances, pinpoint a person's true love, and perceive the bonds connecting people to one another. The Indigo Tribe. The Indigo Tribe draw their strength from the indigo light of compassion. Centuries ago, violent explorers arrived on the planet Nock and turned it into a hub for a slave trade, constructing dungeons to imprison the native population before shipping them across the universe to unknown fates. Abin Sur, considered one of the greatest Green Lanterns who ever lived, came to Nock and joined forces with Nostromo, one of the surviving natives, to drive the invaders out. In the course of that fight, the two of them uncovered the source of the indigo light. It rose from a spring inside a cavern deep in Nock's jungles, fed by something buried in the planet that no one could identify. Once the captives were freed, most of them disappeared back into the jungles, but Nostromo remained behind to teach Abin Sur how to wield the indigo light. Abin Sur and Nostromo became close allies and friends, and together they forged the first indigo ring. Abin Sur then departed and returned sometime later with a woman named Iroquois. She was the first to wear one of the rings, and it remade her, flooding her heart with compassion. Abin Sur then set out to gather others while Nostromo stayed behind to forge more rings. The tribe that resulted was assembled from the most vicious killers and sadists the universe had ever produced, each of them brought to Nock by Abin Sur himself. Despite the apparent redemption story, Abin Sur had another motivation for his actions. The prophecy of the Blackest Night had convinced him that once that event ran its course, the Green Lantern Corps would fall to a concealed threat from within its own ranks, the Guardians of the Universe themselves. Like the other cores of the emotional spectrum, the Indigo Tribe recharges their rings by reciting an oath, though they draw that power from a staff rather than a lantern-style battery. The oath itself is spoken in an alien tongue that no power ring can translate. The entity that embodies compassion is called proselyte. Its origin resulted as a progression through the emotions, with compassion arriving last, offered freely to everyone. Proselyte takes the shape of a cephalopod with 4 visible limbs, a form meant to suggest it reaching outward to give itself to every living being. Its inner surface is covered in markings that echo the Indigo tribe's symbol. An Indigo ring grants these standard abilities common to power rings, though its wearers can also use the Indigo light to teleport themselves and others across vast intergalactic distances, but doing so consumes so much of the ring's power that it is used only when necessary. The light can also heal through great empathy, but the process forces the person being healed to experience the pain they have inflicted on others. Beyond storing Indigo energy, the ring can channel the other lights of the emotional spectrum, allowing its wearer to mimic the abilities of the other cores. The bonding process to the Indigo Lantern ring strips the wearer of everything but compassion. The ring is parasitic by nature, and it takes hold most successfully in someone who has none of that compassion to begin with. Removing it erases the wearer's memories of everything that happened while they wore it and returns them to the person they had been before. Anyone who chooses to put on a ring willingly, however, can use it without having their mind altered. The Black and White Lantern Corps. The Black Lantern Corps was made up of the dead, who served as the army of Necron, the Lord of the Unliving, and their goal was the extinction of all life. Their power came from black rings worn by the deceased. Those corpses the rings raised were compelled to tear out the hearts of the people who would be most devastated by seeing them again, because the raw emotion carried in those hearts could be harvested to bring Necron himself back into the world. This darkness had existed long before the universe itself. At the dawn of time, the white light of creation drove it back, and though the darkness lost that fight, it managed to shatter the white light into the separate colors of the emotional spectrum before it fell. Despite its defeat, a prophecy known as the Blackest Night foretold that the darkness would one day return to resume its war against all creation. A body reanimated by a Black Lantern ring is constantly rebuilt as it takes damage. The rings anchor themselves by sending black tendrils into the bodies they claim, making them impossible to pull off by force. Every time a Black Lantern kills someone and tears out the heart, 0.01% of charge is returned to every ring in the core. Necron also installed the anti-monitor inside the Black Power battery to serve as its physical power source, a role he seems suited for because he has long wanted to see humanity ended. As for their weakness, white light can destroy Black Lanterns, as can green light combined with the light of another core. They can also be stopped by having their rings removed, by being hurt faster than the ring can repair the damage, or through the destruction of the actual ring. As a result of the emergence of the Black Lanterns, the White Lantern Corps was a makeshift force assembled to fight them. Sinestro became the first White Lantern by bonding with the life entity, the embodiment of life itself. Necron tore the entity away from him, and it was then taken up by Hal Jordan, who worked alongside the Flash to use its power to pull several heroes free of the Black Lanterns and bring them back to life. The life entity is the embodiment of the white light that creates life and dwells within the earth, taking the form of an enormous winged humanoid. It is the source of all life and the parent of the emotional entities. A White Lantern's ring lets its bearer form constructs of white energy powered by life itself. Sinestro was able to wipe out swarms of Black Lanterns with ease while carrying the entity, and was able to shake off otherwise clearly fatal wounds. Of note is that a Green Lantern ring can also be made to work like a white one if its users master the emotional spectrum, though that version of a White Lantern is closer to a stronger green ring when compared to the powers achieved by harboring the life entity. What other lore videos would you like to see? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to the next video with all of you.